Module 4, Research. Learning outcomes of conducting research is you should be able to discuss the impact of research in business reports, discuss the steps in the research process, identify common types of internal and external data used for business reports, explain the role of primary research and the most common forms that are used, explain secondary research and how it is used to support the report. Using data for impact. There are two types of business reports: analytical reports, those that help make a decision whether to hire more people or expand a product line. Informational reports that are used to inform people throughout the organization about something of importance. What other qualities should business reports have? The research process steps. Start with conducting research using the 6 steps. Ask a question, find existing knowledge, develop a research plan, conduct your research, analyze your data, and then present your findings. But remember to cite your sources. One of the things that I get a lot is most of men like chicken wings. Okay, well that's great, but most is very vague. Much better to say 75% of men polled like chicken wings. But we also have to poll. We just can't pull it out and say most people like this. We have to do research and have something to back it up. Okay, investing time in the research process. Steps in the research process: determine a problem and define a question to answer. I often tell students to write a question before they start a report so that they have an end goal. For example, the purpose of this report is to analyze ice cream products and see which are the best to sell at NCCC. Something definable. It's a problem. Now everything I do should be trying to get an answer to that question. I don't want to bring in any other information because that's the scope of my research. Okay, you want to find general background information about your problem or question. Develop a strategy to address any data, informational gaps. Conduct the research. Collect, read, and evaluate and write what you have learned. And cite the information you have found so others will be able to follow your research trail. Okay, what are some types of data sources? What's the difference between internal and external data? Internal and external data can be organized into 2 categories: qualitative and quantitative. Remember, quant means numbers. So quantitative is something that I can, like 75% of all men like chicken wings. Okay, so some examples of primary research. What is primary research, first of all? Well, it's information that you go out and you locate on your own. It might be by doing an observation, an experiment, an interview, surveys, analysis. It's not something that's out there already for you to quote. It's something that you put together yourself. Secondary research on the other end is it's already been done, it's published, it's somewhere that you could find it. Examples would be books, journals, newspaper articles, and media reports. Okay, so we got our learning outcomes here for internal data. Identify the primary sources and internal data. Discuss methods for collecting and analyzing internal data. Create workbooks and do data in Excel or in Google Sheets. Okay, types of primary sources and internal data. The Ithaca College Library defines primary sources as direct or first-hand evidence about an event, object, or persons, and could include historical and legal documents, eyewitness accounts, results of experiments, statistical data, pieces of creative writing, audio and video recordings, speeches, and art objects. Interviews, surveys, fieldwork, and the internet communications via email, blogs, listservs, and news groups are also primary sources. So the internal data are data derived from internal primary sources about your organization. Examples of internal data would be human resources report about turnover and hiring to your institution, or financial statements from accounting or finance. Okay. Collecting data. Access is key. If you do not have good access to a group or set of data, your ability to collect that data is severely compromised. Data may be readily available or necessitate some sort of cross-divisional or at least team privilege and access. So working in Excel is a useful spreadsheet program for storing, organizing, and manipulating data. There's a program called Access that is a database, and that I think allows you to manipulate the data more than Excel. But for most purposes, Excel are what we use. I know when I worked in the corporate world, I used Excel almost every day. So, I mean, you could do budgets, you could do sales projections, you could do distributions of taxes, all kinds of things you can do in Excel. Okay, working in Google Sheets. Google Sheets is very similar to Excel. However, this tool allows for real-time collaboration, meaning multiple people can be working on it at the same time. Google Sheets is a free online tool. You can be assured everyone you work with has or can get access to Google Sheets as long as they have the internet. Many of the skills you learned for Excel can be applied to Google Sheets, such as basic text formatting. So if you have a spreadsheet and you want to, you learned on Excel, you can really go into Google Sheets and start using it right away. I mean, it's very user-friendly and it's very similar. I learned on a program called Lotus 123 a million years ago, and it's very similar to Excel. I made the move over very easily. So if you haven't tried Sheets, you might want to at least take a look at it. Okay, preliminary research strategies. Having a well-defined and scoped question is essential to a good research strategy. If your question is not specific enough or it lacks boundaries, your subsequent strategy will be difficult to maintain. You need a question related to your topic that you want to answer. So how do you find sources? Work to simplify search phrases. Search engines like Google use a high-level search operators, meaning that short and simple search phrases will be efficient when trying to find the information you need. Use a cautious eye, however, and try different keywords or various combinations in order to find different results. You can also use Boolean operators, words like and, or not, or near, or use Google's advanced search features to narrow down your results. For example, if I'm writing a paper on Martha Washington, I could search for Martha Washington and George Washington. Well, it's not going to give me much difference than just Martha, because everything that talks about Martha is going to talk about George too. I could put Martha or George. I'm going to get all kinds of hits, because there's going to be a lot of sites that talk about him that don't talk about her. And finally, not. If I search for Martha Washington, not George Washington, I'm going to get like two things, because it's going to be not Martha Washington, the first lady of the United States. Okay, using databases. I just mentioned a database Access is part of the Office suite, Professional suite, but there are others. There are some places you can look for secondary source material like Google Scholar. Watch Google Scholar though, because I always they want me to pay money for articles, and they should be available, or possibly even available through your college library card. So check that out. Library databases. Subject headings and bibliographic links are important to pay attention to when you're researching. Research hint: find one good scholarly article and then look up the works cited. They stole my research method. Just kidding. All right, information literacy. There are 7 pillars of information literacy. Identify, assess, plan, gather, evaluate, manage, and present. So how do we evaluate sources? Well, consider the URL. If it's a .com, they may possibly be trying to sell you something. So keep that in mind. Not all .coms are selling something, but a lot of them are. Versus orgs are generally better, or gov, hopefully. What type of website is it? Is it a blog, an encyclopedia, a news page? You know, if it's somebody's blog, it might just be their personal opinion. So, you know, make sure that you check out what they're doing. What is the purpose or claim of the website? Some will tell you they're trying to sell you something. Some will be more sneaky about it. Okay, not all bias is bad, but make sure to acknowledge all of your biases to maintain credibility. My personal favorite, the CRAAP analysis. Currency, how current is the source? You got to watch. I mean, there's information out there. Say I'm doing a report on stem cell research. If I find an article from the 1990s, that's way old information. It's not going to be probably even true at this time. There's so much more information available, so I want to make sure that it's current. Reliability, how important is the information and has it been consistently presented? The authority, what is the source of the information? Who's the author? What's their expertise? You know, I could be searching for stem cell research and have brought up a 3rd grade book report from an 8-year-old. That's not really the authority on the subject. Accuracy, judged against other sources, how correct is the source? And purpose, what is the goal of the source and why was it created? Case study, new media today. Information presented through the media must be scrutinized as much as any other source, especially with the growing consolidation of sources. For example, in the last presidential election, I regularly read CNN as well as Fox News, and they're very polar opposite in their belief system, I'd say. So it would be very interesting to take the same event and read CNN's spin on it versus Fox News's spin on it. They were quite different. All right, synthesizing sources. References to sources should sound natural with the flow of your writing. You can quote, you can paraphrase, and you can summarize. But just because you summarized or paraphrased even, you may still need a citation, so keep that in mind. Okay, so writing ethically. Professional integrity, a common sense standard for professional integrity. Would anyone question the manner in which I'm doing this work or activity? So if you ask yourself that, you should be able to answer in the affirmative. If not, maybe you need to rethink. You want to avoid plagiarism. 3 tips. If you even suspect that the idea belongs to someone else, take the time to go back through your notes, Google, or other reputable sources for search for the author. Allow time to build your report, and if you're not sure of the authorship, consider using other evidence. Just don't even use it at all. Okay? So considerations of your citation should be: who's your audience, how much time is available to you, and what are you trying to communicate. It talks about bias in the chapter. Make sure you go through and take a look at that. Well, we got a minute. A word on bias. Some consider bias to be a problem. However, we might argue here that bias is a normal part of life and human interaction. We are all biased by our upbringing. Our frame of reference varies based on our experiences and our perspectives. While any attempt to be objective in your analysis is a good thing, it can be just as useful to acknowledge your biases in your research and arm the reader with or consumer of your material accordingly. In a way, this is a form of respect to your readership. You can acknowledge their critical thinking role in consuming your material and also acknowledge that ruling out all biases, no matter how professional or scientific one's research approach might be, is ultimately impossible.